This leads us to our final speaker of today. Have you enjoyed today? Yep. All right. So we've got a good friend of mine by the name of Daimien Patterson who's going to bring us home. Now, Damien and I have known each other for maybe 4 or 5 years, and we've been in groups just like this together. So we've sat next to each other in groups like this, but we've been in the audience. Now, as our journeys have evolved, Damien now speaks on stages, and so do I. So it's been a pretty fantastic journey. He's done a lot of stuff. So the people that I like to put in front of you guys are heavy hitters. People who not only know the theory of business, but have also walked their talk. So Daimien Patterson is definitely one of those. He's got an inspiring story of his journey up until now. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So what I'll do, did you write this? Daimien Patterson is a highly valued speaker and mentor. You did write this.
Who wrote it?
You? I don't know. I wrote it. Daimien Patterson is a highly valued speaker and mentor and leadership in business in Australia. Whether you are the CEO or on the front line of services and sales, Daimien will share with you practical things that anyone can do to immediately start getting results from their staff and their clients. He has just done some amazing things. I could read this to you, but guys, it's there for you to read. He deserves a fantastic introduction, and he deserves a great round of applause for you guys. So would you mind standing up and please giving Daimien Patterson a big round of applause.
Thanks, buddy. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, how top a bloke is Steve Dixon? What a great guy. So look, you can see my little profile there. My story is pretty simple. I grew up in Campbelltown, actually. I live in Queensland now. That was my escape. My escape Campbelltown plan was to join the army, and I joined the army, and I got in there at quite a young age, and was an officer in the army for 15 years, and then I got into business, and since then, I've experienced both a massive failure of one company that I started and massive success of another company plus a community. So I'll talk a bit about that today. But what I'd like to talk about, though, what I've been invited to talk about is leadership, and that's the theme for today. But I want to talk about what I call real leadership. Because a lot of people out there who talk about leadership and they have their Venn diagrams, those little circles that overlap and all that sort of stuff. And that stuff is good in theory, but it's not going to make you more money. It's not going to get you to inspire your staff. So what I'd like to talk about today is those rubber meets the road things that you can actually go and do, tangible little to-do list type stuff that you can go and do that's going to make you a better leader and make your business better. Is that okay? Okay, great. All right. So yeah, that's my story. I don't know how well you can see that slide, but I got into Duntroon when I was 18, and Duntroon's an interesting place. Being a young fella who grew up in Campbelltown, single mum, 4 kids, the classic story, right? And I was pretty wayward, off the rails. But I don't know how I managed to get into Duntroon, but if they knew all the stuff I got up to, they probably wouldn't have let me in. But that place sorted me out. And the one thing they taught me there was the value of integrity. And they say that if you're going to lead people, you must have absolutely uncompromised integrity. And I didn't know what that was at the time. I'm like, what's this integrity thing? And we all want to have a set of values to follow. Some of us look to religion to get our values. Some of us look to other places. But I latched onto this word integrity, and I thought, well, what does that actually mean? And integrity to me means, being a good person in all things. Not only do you tell the truth, but you also, when no one's looking, you do the right thing. And I have a bit of an analogy about integrity. Integrity, we're all in the ocean in a boat, right? And we're all floating around in our own little boats. And every time you tell a lie or you do something dodgy or you don't deliver on a promise or something like that, you put a hole in your boat, right? And you can stick a finger in that hole, and you can keep sticking fingers in those holes. Eventually you run out of fingers and you'll start using your toes, but you won't be able to steer your boat and you won't be able to go anywhere because you'll be too busy covering up all your lies and deceptions. Does that make sense? And everyone knows someone like that, don't they? Full of Righto. So, but the other thing is other people are going to look at you in your boat and they're going to see that person's got no control of the boat. That person's too busy covering up all their lies and their boat looks like Swiss cheese and looks like it's about to sink at any minute. And they're not going to get in your boat, are they? They're not going to hitch their boat to your boat. So it's really important that you have this integrity, because if you want people to follow you when you're not watching, then they have to be a believer in you. And they're not going to believe you if they don't trust you, and they're not going to trust you if you don't have integrity. I went to East Timor and Iraq, chased bad guys around there, and maybe I'll tell you a few war stories tonight if you buy me a drink. But interesting environment. And in the military, you know, it's quite a privilege to go to Duntroon and get 18 months of training. You know, people who leave school and go and follow civilian pursuits, you might go to university, but otherwise you're going to get thrown in the deep end and just told to work from day one, right? So I think I'm different because I've had that privilege. But in the military, it's not about making money. It's about achieving the mission. And so you either do one of two things. You're either fighting a war or you're training for a war. But leadership in that environment is its most challenging, I think, because you're asking people to put their life on the line. You're asking people to charge that machine gun pit. You're asking people to go on that patrol and put, you know, literally put their life on the line for you. And in that environment, some of the best leadership traits come out and some of the worst as well. At age 20, I had my first command of 30 soldiers. So from a leadership perspective, you know, they sort of threw me in the deep end and said, swim. And I think I managed to swim. And then by age 30, I had a command of 100 soldiers. And then I decided to get out. And I got out. I worked for a company, a property investment firm. When I was in the army, I was investing on the side, doing quite well as a property investor. And then I got offered a job. I worked for these guys. They're a bunch of crooks. I can't tell you who they are because they'll sue me for saying they're crooks. But I then decided to leave them and start my own companies, plural. And one of the things I decided to do was help a family member out and set up a landscaping company with him on the side. Now that was Integrity Property Improvements. That company was an absolute disaster. And I learned a whole heap of lessons from that about who you partner up with, you know, and not having a plan, and the arrogance of thinking that I could run two businesses at the same time and expect them both to be successful. You know, you can run one business at a time, get it systemized, then move on to the next one. Try and start two at the same time. You're an idiot, basically. So the other one that I did start though was my property investment business, which has been very successful. And you know, there's a lot of property investment companies out there that may be less reputable, but I wanted to build one that was based on the principle of integrity, that educated people, did proper research, and was focused on helping the client, not on helping the developer who's trying to flog stock. So, and the other thing I started was this thing called military cadets, which is military cadets. I was in the cadets as a kid, and that was part of what got me on the straight and narrow and got me into Duntroon. Military cadets is a new adaptation of what the Defence Force has been running for years. It's run exclusively by veterans. A lot of recent veterans who've come back from Afghanistan, Iraq, and places like that. And so it's a better model. Was anyone ever in the cadets when they were in school or anything like that? Yep. So it's a lot better model. To be an instructor, you must have been in the real military. Ironically, the ADF cadets, you can be a parent or a school teacher and they put you on a 1-week course and then you're an instructor. For ours, it's a bit different. But that's been dramatically successful. And it's grown in 3 years from me and no one to, I think we've got 450 kids now in 6 locations with over 60 adult volunteers who all volunteer their time for free. And what's been really, and for me, that's a wonderful feeling to know that I've made that difference. But if you ever want to learn about leadership, start an all-volunteer organisation. Get people to work for you for nothing. Because when you're not paying them, you better be a bloody good leader, right? Yeah, so I can talk to you more about that later. All right, so when I graduated from Duntroon, I was freshly commissioned and had my rank on my shoulder. And I actually come from a military family, 4 generations Australian Army. My great-grandfather served in the Boer War and the First World War. My grandfather served in World War II, and my father's a Vietnam veteran. And I went to my grandfather and I said, look, what advice have you got for a newly minted lieutenant in the army? And he said, well, the first bit of advice I've got for you is to learn to take orders before you start giving them, and never give an order that you wouldn't follow yourself. And I thought that was very good advice. And later in my life, I came across these 10 rules of good fellowship. And everyone always talks about leadership, don't they? You know, and I think subordinates have very high expectations of their superiors. But the thing that you have to do as a leader is you have to communicate your expectations of your subordinates. And part of that as well is admitting your own frailties and your own, weaknesses, so that when you make them, they'll be less judgmental of you. Because if you pretend to be perfect, you're going to be exposed and you're going to compromise your own integrity, aren't you? And people, just think about the people you've worked for before who wouldn't admit they were wrong when they made a mistake. So what are the 10 rules? Okay, and it's good to go back to your workplace and talk to your team about this. And if you're working within a team and you have a boss as well, then or maybe if you're the owner of your own business, you look at your client as the boss. All right, don't blame the boss. That's the first. When things go wrong, blaming the boss doesn't help. What sort of followers do you want? You want someone who's just going to fix things when they go wrong, don't you? Because things go wrong, that's par for the course. Things will always go wrong, but you want people to just fix it and don't play the blame game. Don't use the boss's name in vain. Don't go down to the troops and say, the boss said we had to do this. You go down to the troops and say, we're doing this. You do things on your own authority. Use initiative. Who would like to have employees who, I'll give you an example, right? I would have a soldier who would go out, get drunk and, crash his car into someone's front fence or something like that. And it would be my responsibility because he was under my command, I'd have to go and sort it out. So what I was taught to do is go to the boss in the morning, say, sir, sorry to inform you there's been an incident last night. Gunner Bloggs got a bit drunk. He drove his car through the front fence of somebody, but it's okay. It's all under control. All the reports have been done. Gunner Bloggs is fine. He didn't require any medical attention. The local, the person whose house was driven through, the fence was driven through, we've gone out, we've spoken to them. They're quite happy that the fence is going to be fixed and everything's under control. All the nothing to worry about. It's all sorted. Who wants a subordinate who does that? But if you don't say to your staff that you expect them to use their initiative, they won't use their initiative. Because they won't use their initiative because they're worried about getting in trouble for doing something that's not in their duty statement. All right, acceptance of responsibility. Tell the truth and get to the point quickly. Good followers will be respectful of their boss's time and they won't waste their boss's time. Deal in facts, not rumours. Dealing in facts is a great thing because often decisions get made in organisations based on rumour, and that can be really dangerous, especially if someone's making a career decision about a person and they're just, I heard that this person's leaving the company. Now we won't put that person in that role or we won't give them that promotion. But that might not be the truth at all. That might just be one of their competitors who's made that story up to go against them. So deal in facts and only facts. And people say stuff to you and as the leader they say, this is happening. And I say back to them, do you know that for a fact? Well, how do you know that? Because I heard Jonesy say it. Well, how does Jonesy know it? I don't know, brew room. Okay. That's not a fact, is it? Do your homework first before you go to the boss. Don't bring problems to the boss, bring solutions. Keep the boss informed and never forget the value of loyalty. Now, this is, I think, a really important conversation for leaders to have with their team. And I have a wonderful team. I started my business 4 years ago with just me. Now I've got 16 staff plus 20, 20 total with subcontractors who run within the business. And I say to them, look, I expect your loyalty. If you want to be promoted, if you want to get pay rises, if you want to be left alone to do your job without interference and micromanagement, then I demand your loyalty to me. Because if I think that you're going to be running me down, or I think that you're going to be criticising every decision I make, and if I think you're about to leave at any second, don't be surprised if I don't promote you. Don't be surprised if I don't give you a pay rise. Don't be surprised if I don't give you any extra responsibility. You see the importance of that? And it's a conversation that you as a leader have to have with your followers. You have to talk to them about loyalty if you want them to be loyal to you. And you have to rationalise it with them in terms of what's in it for them to be loyal. Because a lot of us as business owners are really worried about investing in our staff and then them pissing off to work for someone else, right? Who's had that happen to them? Yep. So if you want to be, as a good leader, you've got to have that conversation to try and retain them. And in that conversation, if they do have plans of leaving, they'll probably tell you then. All right, what is leadership? Well, I think first, there's a lot of different people out there talking about leadership, but they're not really talking about leadership. So let's talk about what leadership is not. Leadership is not command or authority. Barking orders is not leadership. Okay? If you're the owner of your company, you have the authority to hire and fire. And people are, at the end of the day, people are going to do what you tell them to do because you have authority over them. But you don't want people to just do stuff because you have authority over them. You want them to do it because they want to do it, right? So how do you get to that point? Leadership's not good management. Management is the use of resources, you know, and human beings are a resource. Doing a duty roster or, you know, a shift roster, that's management of that human resource. But that's not leadership, okay? And good strategy or being a good technician, that's not leadership. This is what leadership is. And this is the Army's definition, and they're spot on. Okay, and there's some key words in that I'll draw your attention to. I'm just going to move these balloons because they're stopping me from seeing the... Okay. First of all, leadership is an art. It's not a science. We understand the difference between an art and a science, right? Science is black and white. Science is a fact. It's off or on. Science says that if I let go of this pen will drop, won't it? It will. There's no other option. It's going to drop, right? That's a science right there, right? But leadership is an art. And what's the expression about art? Art is in the eye of the beholder. And all of your followers, they're going to expect you to lead them in different ways. And so you need to have this emotional intelligence about how people are feeling, what they expect, and you need to adapt your style for every person you're leading. Does that make sense? You need to understand how they like to be led. So have you had that conversation with them yet? So when you sit down, you should be doing quarterly interviews with your staff at the worst case, right? Sit down and say, how do you like to be led? Ask that question. Some people say, I like to be left alone. I've been working for the company for 20 years. I know what I need to do. Just leave me the hell alone. Just tell me what you want done and get out of my grid square, right? Some people will say to you, you don't provide me enough direction. I'm not sure what to do. I never know what's going on because you don't. So you've got to ask that question. Because a lot of your staff are intimidated by you. A lot of your staff, you probably think, what, intimidated by me? I'm such a lovely, caring, gentle person. But you're the boss who has the power to hire or fire them. They're quite worried about saying anything to you in case they stuff it up, right? So you need to ask. You need to ask them how they want to be led. It's an art. Keywords, influencing and directing. Now, directing's easy. That's given orders, right? That's just, we're going to do this. But influencing's more subtle. How do you influence someone's behaviour? Now, when you're not there, how do you make sure that they're all going to do the right thing? And we're going to talk about how to influence people today. And then to achieve willingly. So they've got to want to do it. Look at the faces on all these people. They're all smiling, right? They want to do the task. And then the last words are quite important too, the team or organisational goal. If you're in a leadership position, you are not there for some self-indulgent power trip. You have been put there by someone else, or you've put yourself there as the owner of the business and you've put yourself in charge. But your role and your authority over those other human beings who live in a free country and can do whatever they like, right, relates to that. The team or organisational goal. The business's goal. You don't have authority over them for any other reason. They don't have to do anything for you other than what the organisation's there to do. Does that make sense? So you've got to ground all your direction and things in there. Some people just abuse their authority, get people to make and brews and all that sort of stuff. But if it's not in accordance with the team or organisational goal, that's, if you're a key technician in your business and your time's better spent being on the tools, then it's fine to go and ask your PA to make you a coffee. Right? But you need to have that conversation with your PA and say, hey, listen, every now and then I might ask you to make me a brew. That's not because I'm lazy or because I think I'm better than anyone else. It's because if I'm on the tools, I'm making the company money and the company will be able to grow and your job's secure. They'll go, no worries, happy with that. I'll wash your car for you too, maybe. I don't know. But all right. Okay. So that's what leadership is. An art. It's about influencing people to get them to willingly do what the team needs to achieve. Okay. Why should you then be a leader? Who here is a business owner? Put your hand up if you're a business owner. Okay, and who's working within someone else's business? Okay, great. So who is your boss here? Is your boss here? Okay. Your bosses are awesome, by the way. And I'll tell you why, because they obviously trust you to invest in you and have you here and let you come to this. And they obviously, there's a good relationship there. You may not know it, but you probably want to just recognise that and be appreciative of it. Yeah. All right, why should you be a better leader? Staff retention. Staff retention equals efficiency, and efficiency equals dollars. How much efficiency do you lose when someone leaves the company? You've got to recruit someone else. You know, who's heard of the forming, storming, norming, performing paradigm? So when a team forms, right, that's how you start. And then there's a storming phase where there's all this conflict, people trying to work out what they're doing. And then once they finally work out what they're doing, you go into the norming phase where they do the job to a minimum standard. And then it's usually about 3 months later that people really start kicking goals, isn't it? So every time you lose someone, you're going back to, you've got to recruit the new person, costs money. You've got to go through the forming, storming, norming, performing thing. You've got 3 months of lost efficiency. It costs money when you lose people. So if you're a jerk of a leader and people don't like working for you and you don't care, well, you should at least care about your money. You should at least be trying to be a good leader for the sake of the business, even if emotionally you might hate that employee. You might think they're the worst person on earth. But at the end of the day, it's going to affect your bottom line if they leave and you have to replace them. All right. Attracting great staff. If you want people to come and work for you, you've got to be a good leader. There's someone who works in HR here before? Yep. One of the things that we do in recruitment with our staff now is we have 3 criteria in the property investing business. First of all, they must have some property investing experience. They can be as a client. They don't have to have been in the industry yet. Second is they must have demonstrated success in another field. Okay, so they must just actually have achieved something. And then the last one, though, is they must be known by someone in the company or someone that outside of the company that one of us trusts deeply. And that's how we recruit. We don't put ads on Seek, because when you put an ad on Seek, you get 80 CVs, right, full of rubbish, full of lies and deception, don't you? Right? We recruit from our network. As soon as we applied that rule, dramatic. My team are ninjas, all of them. I love them. But it wasn't that way 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was hiring and firing. My turnover, I had like a 50% turnover per annum. Now I can't get rid of them. They love it. You know. But if you're a good leader, what will happen is your team will recruit for you. They'll go to their friends and say, you need to come and work for us. Damo's are bloody great to work for, and you need to come and work for us. Because they'll go to barbecues and they'll have other friends who have similar skills to them, and their friends will go, oh, I'm thinking of leaving. Oh, come and work with us. You see. So you've got to be a good leader to attract good people. If you're not, you get the people. I think Brad Sugar says you get the people you deserve. And you think about that in the context of leadership. That's what he means. You know, if you're a good leader, you'll get good followers. If you're a crappy leader, you'll get crappy followers. All right. More joint ventures. Who would like to have joint ventures with other businesses where there's two-way referral going on? You know, well, if you want those other businesses to believe in you, then you need to be a good leader. You need to be able to communicate with those people, inspire them, give them confidence. They need to be able to trust you. All of those skills. If you want more sales, you need to be a good leader. Because as a salesperson, you are leading your clients, aren't you, down a path. You're leading them to buy your product. So, you know, how are you inspiring them? How are you building trust with them? And if you want investors, which equals growth, then you need money. I have investors in my company that invested, you know, 6-figure sums of money for no equity and just a percentage return after 12 months, no repayments, percentage return after 12 months, personal guarantee from me. That's it. Would you give anyone your money under those terms? So why do those people give me their money? Trust. Because I've been able to go to them and paint to them my vision for the company, what I want to do. I've been able to demonstrate they've known me, they know they can trust me because I've got integrity. I named my company Integrity, for God's sake. All right. So why do people follow someone? Values, similar values, yep. Why do you follow someone, Johnny? Their confidence or your confidence in them? Mm-hmm. Great. Awesome. Sometimes you meet people and you go, I don't know what that guy's on, but I want some. That sort of, that infectious energy. Yeah. But all leadership has at its core the T word, trust. Okay? It's at its core. What do you need? You need integrity to get trust. You need to be competent. Who knows someone who's really nice, but you wouldn't follow them anywhere? Why? Because they're not competent, right? Lovely person, but not competent. So you've got to have both. Fairness. When you're dealing with your staff, it's really important that you are fair in your dealings with everybody. If you promote, if you give someone a particular reward, maybe you give them a quarterly bonus or something, and then you don't give everyone else that bonus, but yet there's someone else that person who's worked equally hard or better than that person who got the award, how do they feel? That sense of fairness is gone. Decisiveness, make decisions. Compassion. Compassion's a really interesting one. I remember when I was in the army and we had a soldier who was, his wife was quite sick. And I remember, and I was only a very junior officer and I didn't really have much experience at all. And I remember thinking, oh, this guy's going to get told to click his heels together and do his job and come to work. And the boss went, your wife's sick, is she? Yep. He goes, go home. And I remember thinking, what? Yeah, his wife's sick, but everyone's wife gets sick. And I remember having that attitude at the time. But now I look at it and I go, brilliance. Because if you were that guy and your partner, if you were that person and your partner was ill, where would your priorities be right now? With your family, right? Not with work. Okay? So then, your boss lets you have the day off to go and tend to your family. What do you now think of your boss? Champion. Okay. 2 weeks later, your partner's well now. Your boss says, hey, Anya, mate, we've got this bloody order we have to deliver. Can I ask you to stay back tonight and get that done for me? Of course. You see, it's all about making deposits in people's emotional bank accounts. And just having that hard-nosed, no, you will work, it all comes down to your integrity and their integrity. If you know they're genuine, do everything you can to help them because it'll come back to you tenfold in productivity and loyalty from that person. Okay. Also, other people are going to look at the way you deal with that person as well. And if you're really rough on somebody who's got a legitimate need, or you kind of go, they're all going to think you're an a-hole, and they're not going to want to follow you either. Because they're going to wonder what's going to happen when it happens to me. One of the things I used to do in the army is that if I found out one of my soldiers had gone to hospital, on the way home, I'd go to the shop, and I had all boys because they were, all men. It was the artillery, and they let women in the artillery now, but they didn't when I was in there. And I would buy an FHM magazine, right? Because all red-blooded 18 to 21-year-old men read that. I'd buy a bottle of Coke, a Mars bar, toothbrush and toothpaste, and I'd go to the hospital and I'd walk in there. And I'd go, g'day mate, I heard you in hospital, I thought I'd come and see you. Now, do you think my wife gave me a hard time for coming home late? Because, no, I would just say to her, well, one of the boys is in hospital. She's not going to give me a hard time for that, right? She's going to think more of me, actually. She's going, oh, you're a lovely man. But here's the thing. When you're in, who's been in hospital before? Think about this for a second. When you're in hospital, do you get bored? Yes. And what do you think about, you sit there and you go, now, this is what you say to yourself. Now I'll see who loves me. Don't you? Now I'll see who really cares. And you could count on one hand how many people visit you, right? Your significant other, your best mate, and a couple of people. Yeah? If your boss walks in, that person's now in the 5, aren't they? And not only that, they've walked in, they've actually been thoughtful and you know, bought you a toothbrush and a toothpaste. It's like, you know, can you see the point? Now, would you want to follow that person? Would you do things for that person? What's the definition of leadership? The art of gaining the willful fellowship, right? Willful. All right. Inspiring. You've got to be inspiring. Now, some people go, oh, well, I can't be inspiring, you know. And this is what I wrote up here before, born or made. Who thinks leaders are born? Who thinks they're made? Who's unsure? I'll tell you how you know. Anyone who says that leaders are born are full of it, right? It's rubbish. They're made. If I kidnapped you at birth and took you from your family and gave them to a family in the mountains of Pakistan, you would speak a different language, you would eat different food, you'd have a different religion, wouldn't you? You are a product of the environment that you grew up in. You are a product of the people you had around you. And you can be, if you're not a very good leader now, if you're introverted, it's probably because the people around you were a bit introverted or there was some sort of force that was poking you in the corner. But that doesn't mean you need to be that way for the rest of your life. But I'll say one thing, if you can't inspire people, you're going to have trouble getting them to follow you. And we'll talk about how you create a vision later. Okay, listens and informs. Who's heard the expression you get 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason? Because that's the ratio you should do of listening to talking. Okay? And whenever there's a problem and you're in your business, the first thing you should do is not talk. The first thing you should do is listen. You should seek to understand. Ask the questions. Deal in facts. Get all the people involved and do your little investigation and go, right, what's going on? And talk to everybody. And then talk. Because you might jump to a conclusion. You might think you know what went wrong, but you're totally wrong and you're going to look like an absolute goose in front of everybody, aren't you? Seek first to understand. 2 ears, 1 mouth. All right, what I'd like you to do now is just take some time to reflect on a leader in your life. Pick the best leader you've ever worked with. That might have been your school teacher, might have been your scout leader, might have been someone you worked for. And I want you to write down for me what made you want to follow them. Why you wanted to follow them. What was it about them that made you want to follow them? And maybe we could just have some music. And I'm going to ask a couple of people to share. It's tough, isn't it, sometimes? Yeah. Have we got a microphone runner? Yep, we might stop with it. Yep. Let's see who would like to talk about someone in their past that they've, yep, over here.
Just waiting for the microphone.
I've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, mate.
Can't hear you, mate.
Go ahead.
Great. So who was the leader that you most admired, and why did you want? What was it about them that drew you to?
It was my first boss.
Yep.
He ran a shop fitting company, and it was probably the 3rd biggest in Australia and 5th biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. So he had plenty of staff, and he used to come in and talk to everyone and walk around the whole factory. He didn't actually have a role. He'd just make the hard decisions and then just talk to everyone about how things happen and day-to-day happenings. Everyone liked him, and he did activities like barbecues and all that sort of stuff, and got everyone together, played volleyball and that at lunchtime. And
Okay, can I just pause you there? Do you hear all that? All of you could do that, couldn't you? All of you could do that. Walk around the shop, walk around the business, visit the front line, talk to people, have the odd social gathering, take the time to listen to them. Yep. Make the tough decisions, let the small decisions and everything else get done by everyone else. This is not being a leader. You don't need to be Superman on a pedestal to be a good leader. Some of the best leaders are quietly spoken. Some of the best leaders don't get up on stage and gob off. Some of the best leaders just quietly working behind the scenes, talking to people one-on-one and pulling the organisation in that direction. Do you want to add any more?
And just his fairness, it was all like it was, everyone got treated the same.
Great. All right. Maybe one more. Has anyone got something? Yeah, over here.
I worked for the Fire Brigade as a HR manager and I was one of the assistant commissioners. And the things that made me want to follow him, he was really fair, although very hard, and he had to be in the job. He had a lot of faith and trust in me, so I really respected that. He had integrity, and yeah, gave me lots of opportunities as well, and really trusted my ability. So yeah, he was just a really easy person. And the story told about going to the hospital, he would do that, and nobody ever knew about it. He never made a big thing about it. But he would.
Oh, people do know about it. You know how they know? The person who got the visit tells all their mates.
But yeah, but you know,
But he wouldn't gloat about it. Yeah.
Never. But he would always be really upset if he didn't know that one of his firefighters was in hospital.
Yeah.
Because he always wanted to do that.
Great, thank you. All right. So you see, the stuff that leaders are made of is not the big stuff, it's the little stuff, isn't it? That all of you can do. All right. The Army has 10 principles of leadership. First 3, be proficient. Know your stuff. If you don't know your stuff, people aren't going to follow you, right? They're going to be worried that you're going to stuff things up. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. What does that mean? Be honest with yourself about what your strengths and weaknesses are. Play your strengths and improve your weaknesses where you can. Seek and accept responsibility. I think all forms of success, the constant thread that I've seen is this ability to accept responsibility. And you need to understand there's a clear difference between fault and responsibility. Often it's not important who's at fault. Often what's most important is who's responsible for fixing it. And in the process of fixing it, trying to systemise something to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Right? Because things are going to go wrong, and things going wrong is actually an opportunity for a leader to step up. Now, when things go wrong, that's actually a good thing for the leader, because that's when you're going to find out how the organisation can improve. That's when you're going to be able to demonstrate your value as the leader and fix that problem. Lead by example. Be the example, I think is better words. If you're going to if you've got safety equipment to be worn on site, then be the model for that safety equipment. If you tell people to park a certain way in the car park, park that way. If you have a clear desk policy, have a clear desk. Set that example. Lead from the front and show people that you can do it yourself, and that you're not asking to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. Right? Provide direction. Some people just can't function without direction. That's your job. You have to tell people what to do at the end of the day. Know and care for your subordinates. Develop the potential of your subordinates. Make sound and timely decisions. Build the team and challenge its abilities. No one wants to be in a team that's just going through the motions. Everyone wants to be taken to the next level. What are you doing to get your team to the next level? What challenges are you giving them? I remember when I was in school, I actually left home when I was 16. I worked for a landscaper up in Campbelltown, and I worked my weekends and my school holidays full time until school finished, and then I went and worked with D.B. Kelly anyway, but one of the things that guy used to do, which was quite clever, he would always have competitions. you know, and with landscaping labourers, there's always stuff to be moved, right? So he'd always go, 2 labourers, he'd divide the pile of whatever it was in half. And he'd go, right, you move that half, you move that half, whoever finishes first gets an early knockoff by an hour. But if it was like, I'm talking about big piles of stuff, right? And I remember doing that, just thinking, I just wanted to win. I was being challenged, but I was massively productive as a result. But there's 2 leadership principles that I would add, and I think these are actually the most important. The first one is thoughtfulness. You know, the thoughtfulness to go to the hospital, you know, and things like that. And then the other is to sell your vision, a vision of success for the team. Not the vision of success for you, the vision of success for the team. But thoughtfulness, I'll give you an example. And, okay, so in the army they have this tradition, and it goes right back to the British Army, when the British Army used to, you know, run half the world, because they were the colonial police force, right? But there used to be this rule that if you wanted to get married, you had to ask your commanding officer for permission. Is anyone in the military, by the way? Can I, right, good, so I can make everything up while you were. Oh, no? You were?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Carpenter?
In the army?
Yeah.
Okay, well I can make most of it up, but yeah. You just go along with it, all right? Integrity, no. But there used to be this tradition, you're supposed to ask your CEO for permission to get married. Now I was getting ready to go to East Timor, and there was about 1,000 people in our battle group, and I was getting married. But I paid off the tradition of, you're supposed to write the CO a letter and get a response and all that. And I just paid it off. I thought, oh, no one follows that tradition anymore. So anyway, I put in a request for leave though to go and get married, and the CO's picked up on it. And we were 7 weeks away from being deployed, so I was like, get married and go to war sort of thing. And I get this letter in the mail, internal mail, and it's got to Captain Daimien Patterson from Lieutenant Colonel Tucker. And I thought, I'm either in a lot of trouble or I've done something really good. And I wasn't sure. But you don't get a letter from your CO in the hard copy mail, right? So I opened this thing up, I went and found a quiet place and I opened it up and I read it. And guess what it said? It said, Dear Paddo, my nickname, I hear you're getting married. And I think that's wonderful. I've met your fiancée, she's amazing. And all the best, mate. I hope you have a really great time. Now, here's a guy who's 7 weeks away from taking 1,000 soldiers into a conflict area where if we stuff anything up, people are going to die. And he took the time to write me a personal letter to tell me, to wish me the best for my wedding, when instead of kicking me in the ass for not asking permission. Now, what do you think I thought of that guy? I'll tell you what I thought of that guy. Time and time again on that deployment, I put my life on the line on his direct orders. And we were chasing a bunch of militia around the border area of East and West Timor, and they'd ambushed a bus and killed 2 people and wounded about 6 and shot off into the forest. And my patrol's job was every time we got any evidence of where they were, my patrol would get in a chopper and land basically wherever the last report was and try and catch these guys. And on his direct orders. But I was like, whatever he wants, you know. So I literally put my life on the line. I even reflect on it now and think, you know, there probably were some of those tasks where I should have just pulled the handbrake and said, hang on, can we just spend a bit more time preparing? But I was like, no, whatever he wants, I'm doing it. And just because he had that thoughtfulness. Now really though, how much effort did he really have to put in to write that letter, you reckon? He would have just seen the leave application, sent to his staff officer or his personal assistant equivalent, hey, write Patterson a letter that says blah, 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 and I'll sign it. 30 seconds, that's how much he put into it, wasn't it? But for 30 seconds of thoughtfulness, what did he get from me? You see the point? Who gets good letters in the mail anymore? No one. How much thoughtfulness, is that something you could use to build emotional credits with people? All right. You are responsible for what happens in your business. Don't blame the troops, okay? If the troops do something wrong, okay, that's because you probably failed before they did. You probably recruited the wrong person for the wrong job. You probably failed to train them adequately beforehand. you probably didn't have a system in place to make sure that they could follow it and not make that mistake. Or you didn't recruit a supervisor to train them, and you're responsible for that. When 99% of people are doing the best job they can. But sometimes it feels like 50% don't care, right? But really that 49% difference, that's the people who are in the wrong jobs. That's the people who don't have the direction, they don't have the resources, the things they need. It may not be your fault, but it's always your responsibility, and there's no point in trying to hang someone out to dry, just focus on getting it fixed. Who's read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? Yeah, most people won't read that book because they go, get lost, I'm not reading that book, I've got friends, I don't need to read it. But it's actually one of the best books you could possibly read as an entrepreneur and as a leader. There's a story in that book about multimillionaire's flying his plane, okay, and the plane starts sputtering, engine stops working. He does an emergency landing and only just lands safely, very, very lucky. They find out that the wrong fuel was put in the plane. The multimillionaire goes and finds the refueler. What do you think he did? What do you reckon? Who thinks they sacked him? Well, everyone's thinking, yeah, but that's probably not the answer because Daimien wouldn't be telling the story. You know what he did? He actually went to that person and he said, right, you understand you put the wrong fuel in my plane? Yes, sir. You understand that I almost died? Yes, sir. Right, from now on, the only person to refuel my plane is guess who? That person. Why? Is that person going to make the same mistake again? No, because 99% of people, in fact 99.99999% of people do not want to kill anyone. Right? But the fact that what would that person have been expecting when that millionaire was, stomping across the airfield towards, he's like, my life's over. I'm going to jail for negligence. Right? But instead he turned that whole situation around, didn't he? And said, no, you've still got a job, and from now on you're the only person. Would that person, if you were that person, the refueler, would you do anything for that? For the multimillionaire pilot? You would do anything, wouldn't you? You'd work till midnight if he asked you to. You see the difference? But see, most of us start as followers, and most of us, we have a totally different mindset. And if you want to be a good leader, you just got to flip the way you think about stuff.
What's the name of the book?
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. All right. It's actually the second most selling book in the world, after the Bible. Okay, 4 types of people. Now, people are either intelligent or not so intelligent, right? Intelligent or dumb, and they're industrious or they're lazy, okay? So, don't put the square pegs in the round holes. I'll tell you how to work out who should be where. Okay, you've got 4 possible combinations of that. First combination is dumb and lazy. Dumb and lazy people, there is always something that needs to be done for them, right? You always need someone to put the rubbish out every day and do the dishes and, those sorts of menial tasks. Those people are quite happy with that. Mostly they don't really care. They're just happy to have a job and that's fine. That's who you put in there, okay? They're still useful, but don't get them to run your business. Okay, you then get the intelligent and industrious. Who thinks they should be in charge? The intelligent industrious should be the administrators, but they shouldn't be in charge. I'll tell you why. Because they will do all the work that needs to be done. And they will be very productive, and they'll churn out volumes of paperwork, and they'll turn stuff around, and they'll be great. The dumb and industrious are the people you must fire. Because they are the bulls in the china shop that are going to smash everything up. They're going to work really, really hard at destroying your business. Right? So those people you must get rid of. And then the intelligent and lazy, what do you reckon you do with them? Put them in charge. Because they will find the easiest way to get everything done. And in business, the easiest way to get things done means what? Efficiency, which means what? Profit. You understand that? So obviously they've got to have integrity. Like if they don't have integrity and they're lazy, then they're just going to rip you off, right? But you'll know those people, you know why? Because they'll be the people who get pissed off and frustrated with bad decisions all the time. So they'll be like, why are we doing it this way? That person is thinking about the bigger picture. They're not just doing what they're told, they're thinking about the better way to get the job done. All right. Why do team members fail? I was taught that when 99% of people mean well. So you've got to remember that. And that is a fundamental law of leadership. 99% of your people are doing the best job they can. If they're not succeeding, it's because of one of 3 factors. A lack of skill, a lack of will, or a lack of resources. Now, only 1% of the time will it be a lack of will. Only 1% of the time will it be a lack of will. Okay? It's probably lack of skill, i.e. they don't know what they're doing, or they're not aligned with what they're doing. You know, they're an administrator who's in a manual labour task, or vice versa. Or resources, time, materials, to do. Authority is a resource too. Often people get given a task without the authority to do it, and then they go and try and get other people to, and then the other people go, get stuff, you're not my boss. You know, so you've got to give them the authority. You've got to stand up in front of the team and say, you know, I've put Johnny in charge, guys. If Johnny tells you to do something, you need to do it, please. You know, you've got to give that person that. All right, skill, will, or resource. So when things go wrong, ask yourself, why has this failed? Is it because of a lack of skill? If so, who's responsible for that? You, because you've recruited someone in the wrong who hasn't got the skills. You've asked them to do something they haven't got the skill to do, or you haven't had a sufficient training regime. Okay. Skill, will, or resources. All right, the self-esteem meter. Dear diary, sorry to bother you again. Some people, you should visualise every one of your staff member has this meter on their chest. We all have this, right? It's called emotional health. Okay. Now, what you want with your staff is you don't want them on the empty, because that's where you get the suicide, the self-harm, the depression, the substance abuse. You know, obviously you need to make sure that people feel they have some value, right? Conversely, you don't want them on the far right either, because that's when you get the arrogance, the overconfidence, that I'm going to leave and start my own business and go into competition against you, right? So you've got to keep them at about the 3/4 mark. So they've got, you know, they're being successful, right? Every now and then you do need to give people a kick in the arse. Every now and then you do need to chop people down a little bit in a nice way if they are behaving above where they're not being honest with themselves about their real abilities and where they're really at. Does that make sense? Yeah. But there's a simple rule to follow. 3 back pats, right, for every kick in the arse. 3 back pats for every kick in the arse. Because most people will take a kick in the arse as long as they're getting some recognition. You've all heard of the counselling sandwich. Give them some positive, give them the negative, give them positive again. I actually think the best way to counsel people as a leader is to paint a vision for them. That vision might go something like this. Matt, can you come into my office? I need to have a chat to you. Matt comes in. Matt, I just wanted to say, mate, that I'm really grateful for everything you've done for the company. There's just one issue that we need to sort out. Is it okay if we talk about it? Get permission? And he's got to say yes. And if he says yes, then I can say whatever I want, right? But if I don't ask for permission, then I say it, he can go, you can't say that to me, right? But then what I then do is say, okay, Matt, there's a bit of an issue here. You're not doing task A well enough. What you need to do is you need to work on this. Now, I've got a vision for you, Matt. I see in a year from now, you being this, doing all these wonderful things, and you're really good at 3 pats on the back. Things, tasks B, C, and D. It's just task A that's letting you down. So right now, you're quite good, but you're not excellent, and I want you to be excellent. If you sort out task B, get on top of that, then you're going to be kicking some serious ass. How do you feel about that counselling session, Matt?
Great.
You're feeling all right, eh? You know, because it's like I've given you, because 99% of people want to do the best job they can, right? I've just given you the missing link to you being awesome. As opposed, what I could have done is come in and said, mate, you little shit, you know, what are you doing? Why are you doing that for? You see what I mean? Totally different. And as a leader, but did I, you know, I don't even, look, I'm slightly overweight and I have no hair. You don't have to be good looking to be a good leader, right? You don't have to, it's the words that come out of your mouth, and anyone can pick those words. All right, the emotional bank account. What can you do to make deposits? The hospital visit is a deposit in the emotional bank account. You know, forgiving someone for making a mistake and giving them an opportunity to prove, you know, to prove you're wrong and make it up. You'll put a deposit in the emotional bank account. Delegate everything. A good leader will delegate everything. Now, most people think that sounds really irresponsible, doesn't it? Like, I've got a job to do, I should do my task. No, your job is to lead. And if you're doing other stuff, you're not leading. Now, the first thing about delegating everything is it's an aspirational goal. You won't actually be able to delegate everything, but if you aspire to delegate everything, you'll only be left with the things that only you can do. And that'll create time for you to do other more important stuff like get out of your office and be a leader, like plan the growing, expand, work on the business, not in the business, and those sorts of things. Okay, you need to make time to be a leader. You need to make time in your calendar to sit down with each of your staff and talk to them. You need to make time to have that social event. You need to make time to visit that person in hospital. You need to make time to take notes. You know, as soon as your business crosses the unfair dismissal threshold, you've got to have documentary evidence of all your counselling and things before you can sack someone. You know, you've got to take the time to do all those things. Okay, your subordinates need to be developed. If you're delegating your tasks to them, then they are learning how to do your job. Now, you own the company, that's okay if they know how to do something. You might not give one person all the pieces to the puzzle. You might just give, you know, one person a quarter of the pieces and, you know, they're not going to take over. But it makes sense. And if you fall over, who's going to do the job? So if you're not delegating your jobs to people, what happens when you fall over? Your business will fall with you. And who does not have the goal of having a business that runs itself and brings them in money without them having to do anything? Anyone? Right. So this principle is very important. You cannot do everything yourself. You'll drive yourself into the ground and you'll fall over. You need to delegate. It's essential to growing any business. And you need to focus on the next phase. A leader's job is to focus not on what we're doing now, it's to focus on what we're doing next. Because the team are executing the current plan. What are they going to be looking for when they finish the current plan?
The next plan.
Direction. They're going to say, what do we do now? And if you haven't worked it out, then they're going to be sitting on their hands while you work out the next phase, right? So a leader's job is to be thinking about the next phase all the time. So you give your orders, you delegate the tasks, and then you go to planning the next phase, whatever that may be for your business. All right, but remember, you can never delegate ultimate responsibility. So if you give someone a task to do and they stuff it up, can you blame them? There's not really much merit in it, is there? Because 99% of people are doing the best job they can. Ultimately, you're responsible. Okay, things you can do today to be a better leader. Now, who's heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So Maslow talks about low-level needs and high-level needs. Now, low-level needs is food, shelter, water, you know, electricity, fuel in the car, pay. Pay is a low-level need, right? Once you pay them, they're meeting their needs, but they need more than that. Because everyone's searching for the meaning of life. Aren't they? Everyone's trying to work out why they're here. And they just need, but what they need to do is they need to feel like they're achieving something. They need to feel like they're progressing. Because humans are perpetually wanting animals, right? They'll achieve one level, and then they'll be like, right, what's next? I want to go up a level. Very few people are happy just to do the same job for their whole life. Okay. What can you do to be a better leader today? Now, Napoleon said, a soldier will fight long and hard for a piece of ribbon. Why do you think the military hands out medals? Because you can't pay someone enough to get shot at. You can't pay someone enough to get shot at. If you're appealing to them on their low-level needs, they'll just go and do something else. You're appealing to them on a high-level need. You're appealing to them on the psychological need to be able to say that I'm doing something honourable. That's how I felt when I was in the military. You know, I'm doing something honourable. And when I rationalised it when I went to war, I was like, well, if I die, at least I can say, my family will be able to say that I was doing something honourable, you know, serving the country. You see? That's a high-level need, isn't it? I didn't go there for the money. If I gave you $1 million, Johnny, and said, here's $1 million, now let me shoot at you. No. And I'd hit too, because I'm a bloody good shot. So all right. What can you do for your team? Write them a note. Little post-it notes. Think about, if you want to know whether it's going to be appropriate or not, just ask yourself, how would I feel if my boss did this for me? And if the answer is good, do it. If you write a little post-it note and stick it on the monitor, say one of your staff members go home, and you just write a little post-it note, right, on their monitor. Say, hey Sue, just wanted you to know, mate, you're awesome and I really appreciate everything you do for this company. Cheers, Daimien. Post-it note, I go home. You walk in the morning, you see that on your screen, how do you feel, Sue? Do you think I'm a corny, silly idiot? No, you think I'm awesome. How much did that cost you? A post-it note, 0.1%, or 1 of a cent. You see that thoughtfulness? All these little things. Write a letter to their loved ones. One of the things we used to do in the army, when I was at Kapuka, where they trained the recruits, we used to write a letter to their parents. We write a letter to their parents saying, you know, dear sir, ma'am, little Johnny's doing great. He's really, you know, he's obviously come from a fine family and, you know, he's really working very hard. Mum and Dad come to the graduation parade. What do you think they say to little Johnny? They say to little Johnny, oh, we got a letter. We're so proud of you. How does little Johnny feel? Great, yeah? How does little Johnny feel about his boss who wrote the letter? Legend. Little Johnny's now got a reputation to live up to. Now, you don't need to write the letter, but you could have the staff function where your employee's partner's there, and you can wait till the employee goes away, and you can say, hey, I just want you to know that you should be really proud of your significant other. Geez, he's good at his job. Da da da. Is that going to come back to the employee? Yeah, and that employee's going to respond in the same way. The boss thinks I'm a legend. The boss thinks I'm a legend. Right, now I'm running out of time. Is it all right if I go a little bit over time? Okay, good. All right, recognise them in front of their peers. There's a rule. Berate in private, praise in public. Okay? When you have your toolbox meeting, recognise someone. Put that on your agenda. Recognition of good work. Give someone recognition. Recognise them in front of their family. In the military, when they promote someone, they always invite the partner in for the ceremony, and the partner pins, usually they used to have 2 rank slides. The partner will put one on and the other person will put the other one, and the CO might put the other one on. Send them an SMS message. Now I talked about the post-it note. Send them an SMS message. Birthday card from you. Every office in Australia gets those big ass birthday cards that are A3 side, and everyone writes it and you get given it. When you get that, how do you feel? You feel like SOP 105 has been ticked, don't you? I got my card, oh that's nice, but you know what? You signed the card for everyone else, didn't you? Do you really feel that special? You kind of, oh okay, you don't really feel rock star special. If the boss wrote you a personal card, how would you feel? Give an EKO for jobs done faster. If someone does a job well, knock them off early. Don't give them another job to do, because do you think they're ever going to do that job faster again after that? Visit them when they're sick, we talked about that. When they make a mistake, trust them more. Use that mistake, like the pilot and the wrong fuel in the plane. Use that mistake as a positive, not a negative. And let's do one of those right now. Who's got the, everyone pull your mobile phones out? You get mobile phones? Who hasn't got an employee? Righto. But you've got someone else you work with. What I want you to do right now is I want you to send an SMS, and I don't want you to send it to the best person who works for you. I want you to send it to the worst person who works for you. Okay, and here's the rule. You must not say anything negative. Don't qualify it. What I want you to do is think of the last thing they did well, and say, hey, I forgot to say. You just find one positive thing about them and just one little sentence. Terry's struggling, she's like, oh. One little thing. But here's the thing. Put yourself in the shoes of that employee right now. How are they going to feel when they get this email?
What did they learn at that conference?
What drugs is she?
Okay. See, this is the thing. All you've got to do is put yourself in their shoes and then do that test. Would I appreciate getting this message? And most of the time, see, us as leaders, we think, oh, this is really corny. Some of you right now are feeling really awkward. Some of you aren't even doing it. You're going, yeah, righto, Daimien, whatever, I'm not going to do it. And that's fine. You know, don't do it. I don't care. It's your own personal development. But if you do it, you will start seeing that people will be more responsive to your feedback. You know, if the only thing your staff hear from you is negative things, do you think they're going to improve their performance? No. All right. Things you can do better this week to be a better leader. Sell your team the plan for your success. Get the team in, right? And not for your success as an individual, for the team's success. Get the team together, have a meeting and say, this is what we are going to achieve as a team. Visit the front line. If you've got tradies on the road, Go and spend some time with them. Make time to do leader stuff. Implement an open door policy. Who knows what a good open door policy is? I'll tell you. Open your door and walk out of your office and talk to people. And people say, I've got an open door policy, come and see me whenever you like. Does that actually work? When you were an employee, did you just go, I might just go and see the boss? No. Right? But if the boss come to your workstation and said, hey, how's it going? Is there anything I can do to help you do your job easier? How would you feel? You know? And these are just words. You don't have to spend money. You don't have to be a rock star. Okay, you just need to be thoughtful. Survey your staff. Who's ever thought about giving their staff a survey and say, an anonymous survey of a little box and say, have in there, what things do you think the company does well? What things do you think we should do better? If you could tell me something to my face, and get away with it, what would you tell me? A good leader will invite criticism. When I grew up in Campbelltown, I was taught that if someone called me an asshole, I should punch them in the face. That's what I was taught. But guess what? You're not going to be a good leader that way. If someone calls you a negative name or someone's got a low opinion of you, there's a reason for it. If someone called me a name or said something negative to me, for me that'd be immediate action stations, get that person in my office, or better still go to their office, say, hey, we need to have a chat. Obviously there's something I've done that's upset you, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to get it off your chest so we can sort it out. Now they might go, well, Now if they behave inappropriately after that, who's the better person? Who's on the moral high ground? If they behave inappropriately, you go, well listen, okay, stop there. I've given you an opportunity to resolve this like professionals, and then you can kick their butt then. But you've maintained the moral high ground. If someone gives you negative feedback, it's actually an opportunity for you to be better, not an opportunity for you to punch them in the face. All right. Implement a recognition program. Set a team challenge with reward and consequence. You must have a consequence as well as the reward. Okay? And the consequence might be, all the men are going to wear dresses for the day and all the women are going to wear suits for the day. I don't know, whatever. Make it funny, make it non-threatening sort of thing. Depends on the dynamic in your office. But have a reward, have a consequence. Okay. Lessons learned from combat. Always have a reserve. In your business, you need to make sure that you've always got a reserve to deal with the unexpected. So what is that? A reserve of money, a reserve of time. You need to have a reserve of ability in your staff. You need to have people that you can promote into roles when other people fall over. You need to build those reserves. If you don't do that, because what they know about in combat is the one thing you can't control is what the enemy's going to do. So you always have to have a reserve for when the enemy throws that thing at you that you didn't expect. Now in business it's no different. You always have to have a reserve so when the market throws that thing at you, that you didn't expect. For example, I'll give you an example in my own business. Right, 2 weeks ago our Facebook ads just stopped working. Just stopped. And it was like action stations. No one knew why. We tried to fix it all. And for 2 weeks we were like, wow. And we'd become too dependent on Facebook ads. So we had to then quickly, shift and change to fix it. And thank God, we fixed it. But, you've got to have that reserve. All right. When you use your reserve, you've got to make another one. Because that market force is still there, isn't it? The unexpected could still occur. And if you've committed your reserve, the implied task is to reconstitute another one straight away. If someone leaves and you've got to promote someone in their position, well, the implied task is you now need to develop your staff again so that someone can step up the next time someone leaves. If your cash reserve gets expended, the implied task is that you're going to have to revisit your budget and recreate a cash reserve when you need it again. Okay? There's always one more thing you can do to improve your situation. So this is what they teach you. When you're in combat and you get shot at and you don't know what to do, you ask yourself this question: what one thing can I do right now to improve my situation? And for you in business, and look, I've been through hell in my businesses, okay, and I know that all of you have, and there's things you don't talk about, right? All of you have been through hell because that's what happens. But if you ask yourself, what's that one thing? Ask yourself today, what's the one thing I can do coming off this conference to improve my business? Okay, a good general always visits the front. Don't be in the ivory tower telling people what to do if you're not actually at the front, you haven't seen what's going on. Always have a go to help plan. Go-to-hell plan is when the enemy gets the best of you, you have a fallback position. Usually you say, we're going to go back to that house or that hill, and we're going to just regroup there. You always need to have that in case, in every plan you make, you need to have that go-to-hell plan. And know the difference between a gamble and a risk. A gamble is something you can't recover from. Never, ever gamble. A risk is something that if it doesn't go your way, you can recover from. Does that make sense? A gamble is something you can't recover from. Don't go all in on one business strategy. Don't go all in on something, that if it doesn't work, you're screwed. Because guess what will happen? It probably won't work. Right. Always, risks are fine though, but just don't take gambles. And then I'll leave it on this slide. Have a real vision. And there was some discussion there before with Steve about visions. And people were saying, well, what is it? Is it my vision? If you get up in front of your staff and say, my vision, I'll tell you what my vision is. I was just telling Steve before, my vision is in 3 years from now, I'm going to sell my business for a very large sum of money, and then I'll be able to do whatever the hell I like. Right? That's my vision. Do you think my staff would be very inspired by that? Well, my vision for the company is totally different to my vision for the team, for me. Does that make sense? So my vision for the company is this. We are going to be Australia's #1 property investment firm. And not only that, we're going to do it properly, we're going to do it with integrity, we're going to do legitimate, proper research that leads people to pick the right places to invest, and then we're going to do legitimate, proper house hunting to find those investment properties that are the best ones to buy. And our asset test is that we only recommend to a client what we would do on the same day if it was us. We're going to be #1. This is not a job, it's a career, and you're going to spend a third of your life here. You've got to be all in. If you're not all in, there's the door. That's when I talk to my staff. Now, what do you think my staff say to that? Hallelujah, I'm all in, right? It doesn't matter if you've got a property investment firm or you run the local bakery.
The plumber.
The plumber, yeah, I'll do the plumber. Wollongong, is there any Wollongong plumbers here? Yeah, righto. Wollongong plumber. So you line your staff up. You say, right, we may be a plumbing business, but this is not any business. You're going to spend a third of your life here. And what do you want to do? Do you want to spend a third of your life just going through the motions? Or do you want to be part of something that matters? We're going to be the #1 plumbing company, not only in Wollongong, but in the Illawarra area and south of Sydney. And I don't want people who are just here to work from 9 to 5. I want people who are professionals. I want people who work hard and work to a high standard, not because I'm telling them to, but because they believe in themselves and they have pride in themselves and they have integrity. And we're going to take over. All the other plumbing companies are really going to struggle because we're going to do such a good job, no one's going to go to them anymore. And as we grow as a company, you're all going to get promoted. If you're part of the success, you're going to get promoted. You might be an apprentice now, but you're going to be running a team of 5 plumbers in 5 years' time on a 6-figure salary. And I don't want to be here forever, so one day one of you guys is going to be the CEO of this company and you're going to be running it. And we're going to have a great life. And we're all going to make lots of money and we're going to have lots of time off and you're going to take your kids are going to go to the best school and you're going to go on holiday every year overseas and you're going to be happy because you're going to be working with awesome people in a great company. If you don't want to do that, there's the door. Who's inspired?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, right? Do you see what I mean? You've got to paint, that's a vision that they all want, right? So what's a real vision? A real vision is a cause, a mission, or a reason for commitment. Okay? It's not you making lots of money. You start talking about how much money you make, you watch how quickly people leave. Okay? They know that you're making money. They know you're the boss. Most employees have no idea. Most employees think you're earning like 4 times more than you really are. Okay? Don't worry about that. Don't even talk about that stuff because it's not the focus. All right? Not some bullshit statement. Okay? No one wants to be a losing team. You remember when you were in high school and they were picking sides and you were like, you didn't want to be the last one to get picked, did you? And you were looking at the players going on the other team. You're like, I want to be on that team, I want to be on that team. Because no one wants to be on a team that's going to lose. So if you don't have a plan to win, don't be surprised when your employees leave your company and go and work for the guy who does have a plan to win. It has to be something that everyone wants, not just you. It needs to be something that they'll be proud of achieving when it occurs. You need to sell them your vision. Get them to buy in. Okay, the first people you need to sell something to are your employees. Once you've sold to your employees, they will do the selling to everyone else. They'll do the selling to everyone else from a recruitment perspective, getting you the good staff. They will do the selling to the clients. When they talk to the clients to go and do a quote or bid for a job or whatever, their buy-in to the vision will come through in everything they say. Inspire them. And that's it. Did everyone enjoy that?
Yeah, all righty. How about a big round of applause, please, for Daimien. That's a good job, buddy.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Awesome, mate. Do we want to take some questions before Damo goes? Yes, absolutely. We've got some kid.
I apologise for taking too long.
That's okay. It was all
He's been late all day. Unbelievable. People go over time. Dan, question.
You mentioned about volunteers, about getting people to work for you for nothing. They're like other businesses and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Maybe cover off that if you've got time.
Okay, so when I talk about the cadets, when I talk to people, I talk to them in storytelling. So I say, listen, I'll get someone who's sort of poking around and I'll say, listen, this isn't just your school cadets, okay? This is actually something bigger than that. It's actually something very meaningful. And what we're doing here is we're helping these kids. But we're not helping them by being Boy Scouts, you know. We're helping them by actually putting them in an environment where they are, you know, forced to perform, and then from that, they come out of that with the confidence where they don't need to be forced to perform, they then do success. Now we've taken kids from getting D's and E's, now they're getting A's and B's. It's an amazing story, and we've got kids, you know, our vision is not to recruit for the military, our vision is to make everyone a leader in society in whatever career path they choose. If they want to paint pictures, they'll be the best bloody painter in Australia. You know, if they want to be a plumber, they'll be the best plumber in Australia. If they want to join the military, that's fine by us. But we're going to help them, that's what we're doing. And on the side, we've also got a great story that we're writing in regards to helping veterans. We've got people who've served their country overseas, but they've been wounded either physically or mentally, and they no longer can serve the army, and they're in the community and they're out of place and they don't know what to do. So what we're doing with those guys is we're giving them something where their skills are relevant, they're able to help kids, and there's an amazing story being written about kids getting out of rough situations and being successful, and veterans getting themselves back on track. And who wouldn't want to be part of that? You know, and that's the way I talk. And you can see that in the way when I'm talking, and so they're like, yeah, I'm there. And I'll work for nothing, but that's where you've got to have that. And you notice how I sort of build up to, like I sort of talk quietly and then
What's the one thing, what's one word if you could describe the way Daimien delivers? What's the one thing? So that passion. People are inspired by passion because there's such a belief. So that's where Daimien said the vision for the Illawarra plumber as well. There's such a conviction and belief and passion in his words. People just want to be part of it, I think.
Right.
All right, awesome, man. That's, handle that, Dan?
Yes.
Happy with that? One more question. Yes, Peter.
One Seatown boy to another. Oh.
Represent.
All right, that's enough. Thank you very much. Let's go get some cars. All respect, town people. Shut up. All right. That wasn't even a question. It was just going from the same place.
There is a question.
There is a question. It's to do with when you're talking about that you had the fuel tank there, and one of the things that I've found that is most difficult is to keep them at that 3/4, you know, because because I've had staff long term now and on fire, but yeah, like really highly motivated, but when you're highly motivated, they can also crash really quickly, you know, so to keep them at that 3/4, what are some of the things you do? Because you
I think if I don't know if you guys have heard of Ari.
We had Ari 2 years ago.
So Ari talks in sales about getting the truth about someone's situation, and leadership's the same. If someone stops working, I think most of us think when someone's not effective, there's something going on, but often there's something in their personal life.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is get to the truth about their situation and talk to them. If someone's not performing, seek first to understand. 2 ears, 1 mouth, get them, pull them aside, have a chat to them, and find out what's going on. And with your best, you know, and it's a bit like, you know, guys, when you're picking up girls, what do? Like, you know, it's 90% talk, isn't it? And it's all about them, and you just keep asking them questions about them, and eventually the truth comes out, and they think you're wonderful, and that trust is built, and then they tell you that you know what's going on. It's the same thing when you're doing sales. Sales is 90%, you know, relationship building, understanding and then 10%, you get to the last 10% where you find out what's really going on. And I think that's the same thing with the performance of your staff. If someone's not performing, there's something going on, and if your responsibility as a leader is just to get to the truth about that. So if you've had people who have been really good and then they're slackening off, I would say there's something going on there in behind the scenes that you just need to get to. Because people will work hard. If their personal life's in order and you've painted a vision for them to progress in the business, there's no reason why they won't be continuing to work and aspiring to the next level. But if you don't grow your business, what will happen is people will outgrow your business. So your business needs to grow with your people so that they can have those promotional opportunities within it. Otherwise, they're going to work for you for 3 to 5 years and then they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for your business to grow, you've got to be a leader, because if you're not a leader, you can't lead other leaders, and you can't. You used to do the thing in the military called span of command, which says one person can only run 5 to 8 people. So if you don't have intermediate leaders and you're not able, because leaders won't follow people who aren't leaders. So if I'm a leader and someone else is not, I'm not going to follow. I'm going to resign. I'm going to go somewhere else. So you need to grow yourself as an individual and as a leader for them to be promoted within. And otherwise, maybe that's it. Maybe there's just nothing more for them, and they're kind of just they've achieved everything they want to achieve, and they don't feel like they're progressing. So they're just
You help them move on.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, I had a question in Queenstown from somebody in a similar situation to you, and the conclusion was that she tried to put a square peg in a round hole, and the reason why the person wasn't performing was because she'd recruited the wrong person to do the job in the first place, and she'd been trying to bash the peg in, and was wondering why it wasn't getting a result, and then the conversation she had, the words I gave her was, listen, this is my fault, not yours. I have done the wrong thing by asking you to do this job. I don't think you're enjoying it, and I think we need to make a change. And then ask them what that is.
What do you think? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
go.
All right, wonderful. All right, guys, we'll give Daimien another round of applause. Thanks, Daimien. Great job, mate. Great job.